Welcome back on Breakfast Extra. Now, given the mounting public criticism and wide-ranging controversies trailing the ongoing 700-kilometer Lagos Coastal Highway project, many have queried the many implications of the government's approach to the matter. Now, on its face value, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, which has been in the works for over a decade now, is a laudable project. This is true. Designed to connect Lagos to Calabar and Cross River states through the coastal states of Ogun, Ondo, Delta, Edo, Bayelsa, Rivers, and also Akwa Ibom. The project unquestionably has a very high potential commercially and also in investment value.
However, concerns over the environmental impact of the project have been raised by environmentalists and concerned citizens. The construction of such a massive highway along the coast could lead to the disruption of ecosystems and habitat loss for wildlife and ocean life as well. Additionally, the project could have significant implications for tourism along the coast, which is a major economic driver for many of the coastal states. The construction of the highway could disrupt coastal landmarks or landscapes and pristine beaches, potentially deterring tourists, impacting local businesses that depend on tourism. And as such, while the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway projects holds promise for economic development, it is crucial that careful consideration is given to its environmental consequences and its potential impact on tourism in the region.
So, joining us today to discuss the environmental and economic impact, the true impact of such a mega project, are first off joining us online, Mr. Desmond Majekodunmi. He is an environmental activist and also founder Lufasi Nature Park.
And also joining us online as well is Olanike Oluboji Daramola. She's the founding director, Women Initiative for Sustainable Environment. And in the studio as well is Mark Slade. He is the managing partner, Little Company Limited, and also co-founder of Jara Beach House Resort, and as well as Jollof by Jara. Welcome to the studio.
Good to have you here. Great.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this mega project and how it actually affects the environments, the economy. First off, your overall view of the project. Great idea, good idea, bad idea, good timing or not?
I think your intro summarized it very well. It's a very laudable project, as you say, been in the works for a long time. The new government have made it happen and made it happen very quickly. And naturally there are, as you say, primarily commercial benefits to this project in the future. And on the flip side, I guess it's the handling and the implementation of the project that's been sort of the challenge. I think the communication around the project has not been as good as it could be. And there's a lot of people with a lot of questions, a lot of stakeholders with a lot of personal and collective concern. And that's where there's been a lot of challenges, I think.
Let me come to you, Desmond, as well, and let's talk about it. One of the things Mark said in his response here was about how this has been done very quickly as well, and the impact of it. What do you make of this? Starting with you, Desmond, and then to yourself, Olanike. Desmond, are you there?
You want me to? Okay, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah. Well, frankly, despite all the issues, and there are some major issues, this project is actually undoubtedly divinely orchestrated. And I'll tell you why. The coastal area of Lagos and other parts of Nigeria is experiencing some of the most rapid erosion of any other coastal area in the world. And we're talking of 120 meters in a year, 60 meters in 3 months, massive amounts of coastal erosion, which we have been monitoring for a long time. And there was some intervention about 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and then it stopped. So having a coastal road by that location is going to bring attention to this, because to have a coastal highway, you need to have a coast. And if this erosion is not tackled very rapidly, you will have no coast. In fact, you'll be lucky to have even the Lekki Expressway. So in that regard, it can only be looked at as a divinely orchestrated move, primarily also because the very company that is doing the road are the same people who were able to put protection for Victoria Island, which are Victoria Island would be in the ocean now if this particular organization had not done what they did to protect Victoria Island. I mean, I know there's a lot of issues, and one of the major issues is, where is your environmental impact assessment? Why are you doing it so rapidly? But the reality is, if this road wasn't being done, the coastal erosion issue might have been ignored too long, even though in all fairness, and I'll end on this note, in all fairness, Lagos State have recently, just I think 3 months ago, said, yeah, they're going to do something. But it goes way beyond the capacity of Lagos State. This type of thing, coastal erosion, is a federal matter. In fact, it's an international matter.
All right,
and
now,
we could go down internationally for it.
All right, Desmond. Now, I wanted to jump on something you said quickly, and I wanted to include both Olanike and Mark here in the studio. Now, you spoke about the fact that there is this erosion going on, but there's an even bigger mega project that has been going on for years that has needed sand feeling of a portion of the sea to make it happen. Now, Olanike, are there any, is what we're seeing as erosion, could this be a consequence of what's happening on the other end of the coast? Could it be the sand filling projects that have happened over the years that are causing the beach line to erode? And I'm asking this to you and to Mark here in the studio because he's had that issue with his own beach line property. So first of all, Olanike, could this be a cause?
Yeah, I would want to say that it's definitely could be linked to, the land filling, because water will always find its natural course. For example, if you look at what continues to happen around Lekki and some other parts of Lagos that was landfill, it continues to experience erosion, flooding, over the years. So definitely, if this project, as laudable as it looks, is going to happen, the question is, it started in 2006, and so much would have transpired such that even if there was an environmental impact assessment that was done way back, things have changed. For example, I've read about communities that were aware that this project was going to happen, and they stayed away, from the roots, the original design, the original plan of the project. But now, there are information around, the alignment is not what it was, when this was conceived originally. So with the land filling, of course, it's going to lead to flooding. And I'm sure that what is being experienced around erosion that Majekodunmi talked about, it definitely has linkages.
Okay, so I'm going to come to you now, Mark, in the studio here with us. I've been to your property and I've seen the effect of this erosion. Yeah. Do you think that this is a direct impact from the sand filling that has been going on for so many years?
So in short, yes. We engaged multiple different consultants and professionals, particularly last summer when we were having our major ocean surges. And the general vibe was absolutely from both ends of the coastline, in addition to global warming and other challenges, sea levels rising. But yes, absolutely, it's had a major impact.
Desmond, during your response, the one thing you mentioned was the environmental impact analysis that should have been done by the Ministry of Works and even the federal government in its entirety. And I want to get this right? Given that, what specific measures do you think should be put in place then if, say, the EIA was not done, which is the environmental impact assessment or analysis was not done? What then can be done to be put in place to mitigate the potential impact on ecosystems and wildlife along the coastal road, away now from erosion and the water finding its path?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I mean, definitely, it's good to have so-called development, but we've seen that these developments can sometimes cause far more harm than good over the long term. Sometimes you don't even see it. In this case, we're talking of developing a road through a very, very intense mangrove area. And these mangrove areas are watershed areas. These mangrove areas, they allow flood water to seep across into streams and into rivulets and so on, which you don't even see during the dry season, the rainy season rivulets. And so the impact assessment assesses these places and insists that certain measures should be taken not to block these particular streams and rivulets. So you won't have the kind of flooding that could come. And this needs to be done. There's a reason why we ask for environmental impact assessment. It's not just, for fun. It's in order to protect the mangrove, which again, I said, it's a very, very important and essential area. However, as Mark said, the major cause of this is the global warming. And this is simple science. You heat a product, it expands. The oceans are receiving far more heat than they've ever received over hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're expanding. Ice is melting. When you melt that kind of ice, the water rises. And because of the heat, you have far more virulent windstorms, which is the major cause of the erosion. And while the sand filling could have a little bit of an effect or even considerable effect in Lagos, how about Ondo? How about going down the coast? We're having coastal erosion all the way down our coast. It is a major emergency. It's one of the major manifestations of the climate change crisis, which is now being classified by the United Nations as the biggest emergency humanity has ever faced. So we need to protect our coast at the same time as we're building the road, so the road can do its good work of linking us together and making tourism a very, very exciting activity for all of us. I can't wait till I can drive all the way to Calabar in half a day. Fantastic. And I'll pass by Mark's Beach on the way.
Mark, again, considering that he just talked about, water and, the climate change and all that is happening with climate change and water receding, right, and then moving in. There is one thing we're not putting into this, Mazino, and that is our torrential rains. When the rains fall, there is flooding. How do you manage with that?
Rains, the rainy season take up 1/3 of our year. So being a beach business, we have to mitigate that anyway. Our own business has a lot of covered areas and business doesn't stop. Our bigger challenge is coming from the ocean. So we can handle the rains where the vertical water is not as challenging for us as the side water that comes from the ocean. That's why we had to put in the prevention methods last year. We spent a lot of money in preventing our own beachfront erosion, the rains are just another challenge.
Another challenge. And now that the beach is now being sand-filled, do you think that with the rains is going to push even more water?
It's very possible, yeah. The more land, it will guide the water down the coastline, and currently there isn't that protection or infrastructure along the coastline. We're not the only coast in the world, but we may be one of the few which aren't protected as well as we should be.
Olanike, I'm going to come back to you, but I want to ask Mark one final question from my slides here. Regarding the impact on tourism, however, especially putting back the factor of the highway being constructed, the businesses that it has affected from this end of the coast, you can see that people have lost their jobs, even if compensations have been made. Sure. However, there must be development, whether we like it or not. The government must make facilities in place for us to have a better economy. What suggestions, as a business owner in the tourism sector, what suggestions do you think you or many others could have for a balance of either preserving our coastline and still having facilities that are worth having as a nation?
Yeah, so I think the first point is, I think there was an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone with this project. The ocean protection could have been perhaps mitigated with the coastal road, but it's being built hundreds of meters away from the coastline with no groins, no protection on the ocean, and as a result of that, that challenge still remains. Tourism-wise, we've obviously seen our friends at Landmark being terribly affected, and as you say, job losses. A lot of employees, thousands of staff have now gone without jobs. There needs to be a conversation piece, back to the communication, open dialogue with local and federal government about what is the bigger picture with this. Some tourism locations along the coastline are currently okay, but equally many are not. And as a result of that, how do we preserve tourism in the future? That needs to be the open dialogue.
Speaking of collaboration, Olanike, let me come to you for this one, right? You had an initiative that is women initiative, that's women-driven and sustainability for the environment. And this next question, I want to direct it targeted at you. What role do you think that the government should play in ensuring that the Lagos-Calabar Highway is carried out in a environmentally responsible manner? I mean, if we want to talk about the EIA, we're going to be here for a very long time. But let's talk about how can they then, collaborate with local communities as well, an initiative like yourself that is women-centered and driven?
I know we don't want to talk about EIA, but we can't definitely run away from it, because the EIA is something that would actually incorporate an understanding of the social impact of the project. And one of the things I know that governments can do moving forward, like I think Mark mentioned something about the poor communication gap, around this project. I know listening to the community is going to be different, helping the community also understand the costs, the benefits of the project. I don't know to what extent the costs and benefits of the project have been put into consideration, but creating an enabling environment where the communities are carried along, interventions that will give a soft landing to these communities around. I know there are talks about compensation, but I don't know to what extent people will actually be compensated in a manner that will help them, regain their lives, because we're talking about disruption of livelihoods, loss of livelihoods, and then, an environment that people so much love and have been living in for so many years. There is need to carry these communities along, and for government to initiate interventions that will empower these communities enough to be able to, move around, move on with their lives. And I know I didn't talk about the effects of climate change when I was talking about the effects that the landfilling would have had, and leading to erosion and flooding. You can imagine also the impact already of climate change on the livelihoods of these communities, and then now a project that is going to displace them. So government needs to create an enabling environment where there is more community engagement, to give the communities an understanding and also listen to what they want. I won't begin to suggest the kind of projects, because there is what we call, community-owned initiatives, where you actually carry out a needs assessment and understand how these communities will be carried along and what they actually need. So I need, the government really needs to engage with the community to understand what would really work for them as these projects are being implemented.
Do we have any samples or examples from other countries where these initiatives that have worked with communities have worked before? Maybe countries with highways themselves constructed without significantly negatively impacting the environment or tourism in itself?
This question is directed to all three of our guests.
Olanike, please go ahead first.
But Desmond, please go ahead first.
Okay, yeah, well, they have been. I mean, there was one, ironically, that they were doing, trying to do in Calabar, that would have cut across a very precious rainforest, and there was a lot of activism, and eventually it was stopped because it wasn't justifiable. The services that road would have done to go to the port there could easily have been carried out by a railway line. And again, sometimes what we look at as modernization, at the end of the day, as I said earlier, it does cause more harm than good. It just depends, it depends on, how strong the democratic system is. And if the voice of the people is really being adhered to, then these things will be done. And that's what we're hoping is the case now in Nigeria, because we really, really need to explain the job description to the people who are running the place. They are civil servants, which from my understanding of the English language, it means they are serving the civilians, and if you're going to serve people, then you've got to listen to who you're serving. And so we're hoping that this is now what's going to happen, because the reality is that you get repercussions for every action. And if the people who are in charge and are supposed to be serving the people are not serving the people effectively, or serving them in a way that will have a negative impact, they also will get that negative impact. God does not mock, you reap what you sow. So let's have far more interaction with people like Olamide's organization, and also encourage people like Mark with the wonderful thing that he's doing with tourism. And also you guys, this wonderful media organization that's bringing the truth out. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank
Mark,
you.
You've been around the world, and you've actually taken sample from what you've seen to put up your business. Sure. Have you seen samples across the world that have put in place these collaborations
or projects?
Yeah, so in terms of reference points, the Netherlands are very well known for their oceanfront protection, but also turning it into a tourism opportunity as well. So I know they kind of reclaim on a regular, almost annual basis their beachfront, but then they have it and they're protected and the communities are fine. India is another good example. Maravanthe Beach Road is a great example of a beach road where you're combining a coastal highway and oceanfront protection. So there's many reference points around.
Along with that, what's the amount that is added to the country's GDP when it comes to tourism, even after expending so much on these projects?
Sure, that I can't answer, but I can tell you that everyone needs tourism. Without it, life's a lot less exciting.
Well, Annika, and lastly, finally, to you, let me come to you and ask about, just the impact of this. If this, the projects, similar coastal highways done globally, without any significant impacts in the environment and tourism, for example, but more specifically on tourism, if we can get it right, what are your hopes for in terms of tourism and women, especially women in business?
Yeah, I'm sure. I know that our big boss, Mark Majekodunmi, had talked about the difference this will make for Nigeria, for everyone. He even mentioned how nice it will be, to travel all the way. I'm sure that if the government actually gets it right, because there are countries that have gotten it right. Mark gave an example of Netherlands. If we could study, how they got it right and bring this back home, considering our own peculiar situation, I'm sure that it's really going to make a difference. No one is actually condemning this project outrightly, but what everyone is saying is that implement this, execute this in a manner that it works for everyone. So I'm sure that for women, there are a lot of ways, that women can be engaged, because for our organization, what we're all about is putting women at the front lines of driving, solutions to environmental problems and environmental challenges. So looking at implementing, projects that will engage women, for example, the issue of energy, access to clean cooking energy is a big deal for women. And, when you're talking about access to cooking energy in a country that still has over 60% of households still relying on forest resources, for cooking. And we know that in the world currently, Nigeria has the highest rate of deforestation in the world. So looking at engaging women in activities like tree planting, deploying energy efficient technologies like the clean cook stoves, these are ways that women, can be involved in making sure that, the social impact of this project is addressed. And I know there are a lot of other laudable projects that can be implemented to engage women and puts them, at the front lines of also mitigating whether the impact of this project, the impact of climate change, and other aspects
in the long run,
how this affects.
Olanike, many thanks to you. Thank you so much for coming in. And also to you, Desmond, we appreciate you for doing this with us, and also to Mark as well.
Thank you very much,
thanks.
Mark.
Thank you.
We look to see what will happen in the coming months, especially when it comes to the other states, for example, Ondo, Ogun, Delta, Akwa Ibom,
all the way up until
Cross River State.
Well, like Desmond noted, I'm actually quite excited about it. But at the same time, because of all the situations that are happening across the coastline with the businesses and tourism, which I'm very, very interested in it being affected. I wish, like Desmond had said, that this is actually an actual coastal road instead of going back inland and affecting communities. And this is only just the start. Like we've noted, this is going to go all the way up until Calabar. And imagine the amount of...
deforestation?
Not just deforestation, the jobs, the people, the lives that are being affected now, and the multiple lives that will be affected eventually. I just wish and hope that there is some kind of way that the government and the people can come together to work it out like they did in the Netherlands, I'm thinking. And hopefully we can sort this out and reap the benefits while still keeping our jobs.
And also to put into mind that we have torrential rains as well. The Meteorological Association, or they put out their latest numbers and saying that, torrential rains are going to be heavy this year as well. And we grappled with flooding. And some of the states that are on the coastal road also tackled with it as well. So this is our call to all of the agencies to get ready for what's to come.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Now, do stay tuned, because after now, we have a very interesting one coming up, and this is going to be the strips. So if you're still with us, we get to take a look at that together. Stay tuned.